Alright. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. This is Tuesday, Tasty 2-Inch Tuesday. Hope you're doing well today. We're off for a couple of days, but we are back today. And we are mixing things up a little bit. Tomorrow, of course, would normally be Wanderlust Wednesday, but tomorrow there's a huge anniversary in rock and roll, and it cannot be ignored. So we are going to switch things up and make today Wanderlust Tuesday. Throwing a curveball at you guys, try to stick with me. But we're excited about today. I'm talking about this band, and I don't think I've talked about them here in the cave. If I did, maybe I threw it in a bunch of list of songs. I'm not sure, but heard this on the radio, and I was like, how have I forgotten to play this song for people? And we are talking about the band Vandenberg. You guys remember Vandenberg? Raise your hands. Vandenberg formed in 1981 in a collaboration between American musicians from L.A., and the Dutch guitar player Adrian Vandenberg. Got that? Vandenberg. He called it Vandenberg. He was in a band called Teaser for a short time, not to be confused with the Teaser band in America. And that didn't last very long, and he fired the bass player, the singer, and the drummer, and got all new musicians and called it Vandenberg, and he goes by the last name Vandenberg. Now, one word. They put out their debut record. We're going back to 1983, 40 years ago, and they had their first single go into the Hot 100, hit number 39, and they were off to the races, or so they thought. At this time, things were pretty big. They were opening up with Kiss and for Ozzy. And then they did what any hard rocking band would do in the 80s. They got big in Japan and went on a solo tour to Japan. So things were going and grooving for them, so much so that when Adrian was approached by David Coverdale to join Whitesnake, he declined because things were going so well. That was in 1983. We'll get back to Whitesnake in a second. So that single came out. They were doing great. They put out a second album. Was well received. Didn't do quite as well as the debut. And by the time the third album came out, things were just not going well. So 1987, we're back. Whitesnake, David Coverdale approaches him and says, "Hey, I want to join the band." And he says, "You know what? Things aren't going so great. So yeah, I'll come on board." And he came on as a session musician and did some guitar work. And he actually does the guitar solo on "Here I Go Again." How about that? And eventually joins touring the band with the band. And then he writes pretty much all the music for the follow-up, Slip of the Tongue, massive album. Then he has an injury and he can't tour for that record. Think about that and how devastating that must have been. So what do? They bring on Steve Vai to do lead and rhythm guitar work on that record and that tour. And they go out on tour, and he eventually is well enough to tour, so he goes on as a co-guitarist with Steve Vai. That must have been awesome, the Slip of the Tongue tour for Whitesnake. Shoulda, coulda, woulda on that one. And then they would do, stuff would happen over the years. He did form Vandenberg as a band in 2020, May 2020, with an all-new lineup, and put out an album in May of 2020. With a new band members, but still under the moniker Vandenberg. First album in 35 years. So that's pretty cool. But we're going back to that single in 1983. It's Wanderlust Wednesday. It's just pretty much amazing that Vandenberg and Burning Heart. It's got just complicated, it's got like layers of guitar strings. It's got harmonies. It's got a little bit of a power ballad to it. Not to be confused with Burning Heart by Survivor from one of the Rocky movies. But this is a good one. If you're of a certain age, you're going to remember this one. So check out Vandenberg today and turn it up, because it's a good one and it's well worth it. So enjoy yourself some Burning Heart today in Vandenberg, and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow and whenever I can put stuff together this week. So whatever you're doing today, hope it involves music. And as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.